Let's take you to this now, where former President Jacob Zuma has suspended his deputy president and leader of the MKP Parliamentary Caucus, Dr. John Hlophe, following Hlophe's decision to suspend the party's chief whip, Collen Makhubele, and appoint Des van Rooyen in her place. Zuma nullified Hlophe's actions immediately upon his return from Burkina Faso. The party says the suspension is a precautionary measure and that the leadership changes Hlophe made in Parliament are now null and void. MKP officials describe the move as a demonstration of unity, accountability and adherence to the party's constitution. Critics, however, point to ongoing factional tensions and frequent leadership changes as a sign of instability within the party. To help us make sense of the implications and the latest developments, we're joined by political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley. Dr. McKinley, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. Just looking at Dr. Hlophe suspending the chief whip while Zuma was away, and shortly after, he himself suspended. What's your reaction to these dramatic events?
Well, I think my reaction is probably the reaction of most South Africans, which is that this is confirmation that the MK party is run by one individual, and that's Jacob Zuma. If we don't need any further confirmation, I think since MK party was formed, there's been 7 general secretaries. There's been numerous other changes. He basically just cuts and wields the axe as he sees fit. It's sort of, nobody seems to be particularly secure in their position. I mean, Hlophe was considered one of the more senior MK people and sort of certainly one of their biggest catches after the elections. And so it's clear that, and I think it's people, are going to start losing a little bit of trust in the party's statements, because when they make a statement and said this is a confirmation of collective leadership, well, the question is, where is this collective leadership? Who makes decisions? Where are their structures? They have no structures, essentially. So I think this is an indication that it's very difficult for a party to sustain cohesiveness internally when one person is calling all the shots.
Yeah. And how much or might Zuma's direct intervention reflect on his control or perhaps influence over party decisions, as you speak about the one person who is in control, especially as we've seen a surge of suspensions and resignations at executive member level in the party, and one must consider that this is a newly formed party.
Yeah, but I mean, basically any party organization to be taken seriously must have structures. And those structures must, so if you have a branch level, you have a district level, you have a regional level, national level, and each of those levels should be responsible for the affairs within it. So I would imagine that Hlophe would have felt that as the leader in Parliament, that he was able to make those kinds of decisions, which normally would be the case, and that you would have the same at branch level and district level. So in the context of Zuma's concentration of power, it was clear. He comes back from overseas, from a trip overseas, and he basically makes this decision and is done. And I think that's where you're going to lose most of your key people, and certainly people that, the MK was very, very public about poaching individuals from other parties, and these are high-ranking individuals and serious politicians, and they've lost most of them. So the question for MK is, where is it going, and how is it going to be able to consolidate itself without a proper structure within the party?
Yeah. With all the big leadership losses, how would you describe the party? Is it a party in turmoil? And perhaps how much does it reveal about leadership battles and factionalism?
Yeah, well, right from the get-go, if you remember Jabulani Khumalo, who was supposedly the founder, and he was basically shifted off, and then, of course, the big case of Floyd Shivambu, and then we've got many, many others, Jimmy Manyi, and so forth. So, essentially, I think what it says is that, and this gets back, it's when you have somebody who's basically making decisions by themselves, what that then tends to make is that it basically says to membership that we must form and must get close to the leader. Whoever's close to Zuma, well, then maybe if they've got his ear, then they are going to be more powerful than the other factions. So yes, and then of course there's his daughter, who's been accused of also stoking factionalism and others. So I think if some critics have called it a family party, and I don't think right now, unfortunately, that's far off the truth. because essentially when you have a situation like this, and by the way, from the news that I have received, John Hlophe has basically sent a WhatsApp message directly to Zuma's chief of staff saying, expel me from the organization, let me go. And if that's the case, and if he wants to leave, then the party's in serious problems, because the question is who's going to want to join the party and who's going to want to take positions if they have no security at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a very critical question at this point in time. The other matter really is the person who replaced Makhubele at that time was MKP Chief Whip. As MK Chief Whip for just over a day is the name of Des van Rooyen, the same man who was sworn in as finance minister by Zuma himself while still president and got reshuffled in about 48 hours. What do you think of Van Rooyen? Is this blind loyalty? Is it failure to anticipate matters on his side?
Well, the way I look at Des van Rooyen is if you look at the politics of MK as a chessboard, he's a pawn on the chessboard. He gets shifted around according to what the higher-ups have said. And I mean, you know, the weekend special, finance minister, now one day as chief whip. So clearly he does not have much say or power in the party. He is basically is going to do what he's told. And I think these are the kinds of, this is when you have yes men or yes women in a party that basically their future in a party is how loyal they are to the leader, then it's a very sort of, that's not a particularly strong foundation for building an effective party in electoral terms or in convincing people to join the party itself and to build it into a much larger one. So I think what Des van Rooyen's case shows is the problems that if you join the MKP, you better just basically be prepared to be shifted around according to the whims of the leader.
And just, Dr. McKinley, as we wrap up, of course, I do want to make mention to viewers that the MK party was, in fact, invited to be part of this discussion, but didn't take up that offer. And as you touch on what's making rounds, request of a full termination of his membership by Dr. John Hlophe, what are the bigger implications if that is indeed what he has requested?
Well, the first implication is, you know, what is the Parliamentary Caucus of MK going to, does it have a leader? Does that leader have the trust of other MPs? You know, we have the ad hoc committee right now, and the MK MPs have been quite, you know, vociferous in their questioning. Are they doing this as individuals? Is this something, is there a party line? Is there something where a party has policy? Or is it just, it's shifting and chopping and changing? So it's fundamental what this tells us that if things are not sort of consolidated and if things are not sorted out within the MK party, then they're going to have not just about, you know, externally and problems with, you know, getting more votes or getting more membership. The internal cohesion of the party will start to crack because people will basically then think, well, the only way that we're going to either keep quiet and we're not going to say anything, and the only way we're going to get ahead is basically if we make sure that we check it with, you know, the leader of the party. And that's not a way to run an organization. And I think Jacob Zuma and others know this. They were members of the ANC for a long time, and irrespective of its problems, the ANC has proper structures and proper processes. And I think that's what MKP is lacking. So if there's any real larger issue, they must confront that issue.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much for summing that up for us. Political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley helping us make sense of the dramatic news that we heard with the MK party's Deputy President John Hlophe being suspended. Of course, a developing story that we will continue to monitor on SABC News. We do continue